computer. All right. So I'm going to record this transmission, and I'm going to put this on my YouTube channel. So if you guys want to watch it there later on as well, too. So I'll have that there. As always before, thank you for anyone who's been following me along with these things. And then, you know, as I said, I try to do these live. And so there are going to be goofs and problems and things along the way. I still haven't quite figured it all out. You know, you figure, you know, I've done about a dozen or so of these. You figured by now I'd have some sort of method to this madness, but unfortunately, that's not the case. So yeah, I'm shooting event stuff. So I'm gonna have to, you know, I'm gonna have to get some different lights for the house down here and try something else out. But it doesn't look too bad on my YouTube there, so that's not too bad. So I mean on YouTube, on Facebook Live there. So all right, so let's get going. First of all, again, thanks again for joining me. I appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit about my upcoming trip, but I also want to talk about something that was kind of bugging me a little bit. So I'm going to go and share my screen here. Go to my keynote presentation. Let's go to here and play. All right, so basically what I wanted to talk about today is about finding the Milky Way. This is some of the things, the questions I get all the time is why I can't see the Milky Way here in Florida, and how can I record it exactly as I see it? You know, if anyone who follows like the Milky Way chasers or something along those lines, you'll find that these pictures look stunning and breathtaking, but when they go out there to try to find it, especially here in Florida, that doesn't look remotely nowhere near the kind of quality that you probably thought you were looking for. You know, as far as the light goes, as far as being able to see it. There's a number of reasons why that is. First of all, you got to remember the universe. I'm quoting Dr. Tyson from Star Talk. The universe is under no obligation to make sense to you. So basically, you don't really need, you know, the universe doesn't have to say why things are happening to you. It's up to you to discover why things are. So you got to stop looking at it like, well, it needs to look like this. No, it doesn't need to look like anything. It doesn't have to look like anything. In fact, the universe is under, again, as I said, Dr. Tyson says, there's no reason why the universe needs to make sense to you as a human being here on the planet Earth. But that's another topic for another time. So basically, why can't I see the Milky Way here in Florida? It's pretty straightforward. There's light pollution. There's weather, and there's, of course, the Earth's orbit. Those are the three main factors, right? However, there's something else. I blame the brain. The brain is probably the most, when it comes to doing critical observations about the night sky, is probably one of the more useless piece of information, or useless, or not useless, but the worst data gathering device out there as far as recording things in a more accurate environment. Let me explain. The human brain is basically one of the, is a complex organ, as most of us are pretty much aware of through anyone who's done any, you know, rudimentary medical stuff in high school and stuff like that. It has a very complex things, and then when things go horribly wrong in it, it goes horribly wrong in there. So again, it gets kind of like, oh, what's going on? I don't know. You know, Alzheimer's and LES and all these other fun things that happen to us as we get older, or things that happen to us through accidents and stuff. But the problem is the brain is not completely accurate when it comes to seeing the world. The brain is basically a very, very, very bad way to rely on for accurate information. Case in point, this particular optical illusion, if you stare at the screen long enough, what happens is that if you notice that the squares in between, the white lines in between the squares, sometimes get a black square in them. That's because your brain is trying to look at the data and decide what's there and what's not. It's perceiving it. This is why we sometimes have hallucinations, why you have auditory hallucinations, why sometimes you can feel something touch you and then there's nothing there. It's because the brain is doing some sort of weird thing to you to convince you that there's something going on. This is how other folks like magicians and mentalists and other folks, they take advantage of this stuff because this is how they can fool and manipulate you into believing something that's not there, creating illusions. Same thing with this. If you stare at this particular screen long enough, what happens is you start looking at all the little dots and you look at every little thing. What happens is that basically your brain starts to fill in the dots. These dots are all white, by the way. And if you start looking at them long enough, these dots become a little bit of, sometimes they turn black. So, if you stare at the center of it, everything's going to be nice and white. But as soon as your peripheral vision tries to look around the other ones or look at the other ones, they all become black because the brain is filling in those things. It thinks they're supposed to be black. It's looking at all this stuff and it thinks it needs to be black. So this is part of the things that makes hard for us to notice the Milky Way, even under extreme conditions, because the human eye just can't quite pick out or discern the data that's out there. Another case in point right here. These are all famous optical illusions. If you go to Wikipedia, click on optical illusions, you'll see these exact charts here. So for instance, if you look on the one thing on the right, the letters A and B right here, A and B are pretty much, they look like they're different. However, if you put the same shade of grading in between A and B, you find out they're actually the same color. The brain is filling in. It's deciding that that's in there. Now, keep in mind, we stumble around throughout our days looking like through all the stuff, and we somehow survive and get through it. It's because the brain more or less filters out some of this data, and most of the stuff, it's not a problem. But there are times when the brain can be fooled. And there's times when you find out that the brain doesn't really show you everything. And we think about with eyewitness accounts. And eyewitness accounts are probably one of the world's worst bit of reliable information because there's so many things, variables that you're not seeing sometimes that you're obscured or something that your brain is filtering in for perceptions. In fact, there's a thing that came out really, back 5 years ago. And again, I'm not trying to start the argument back up about what color this dress is. This is like the dress that broke the internet, basically back in 2015. At least that was the big thing about it. And the big thing is trying to decide if this was what color this dress was. This dress was either going to be looking at it is either going to be white or gold or blue and black. And for those of you who know the answer now, the answer is it's actually blue and black. It's because the picture, the way it was taken, you're actually not seeing the colors in their actual environment. The photograph is a really poor design photograph. There's a guy who did a further study about color manipulation and stuff like that. And if you look at this particular one, I thought was pretty cool idea behind it, is that you could see like some of the shadings with different, how the colors change with the different shadings on there. Now, keep in mind, this particular picture was photographed under really bad conditions. Oops, back up, sorry. Bad conditions. The white balance was off. It was overexposed. So if you look at the data on here on the left, that's basically the color of it right there on the way we saw it in the photograph. And basically, I re-edited the photograph, changing the color balance, manipulating. So I didn't paint the color in there. I didn't change anything. I tried to remove the pixels around so that the whites became what they were supposed to be, because blue was in there. And it was more like a brownish color that the black was doing, because again, it was really way overexposed. Now, the weird thing about this is a bunch of people saw this one on the left and said this was white and gold. But there is a bunch of other people said, no, it's blue and black. That's because their brain perceived the data differently. And this was a big heated argument with some folks out there. And there was arguments back and forth across the internet about this thing, about what this was. I mean, literally people had huge arguments about what was real and what wasn't. Case in point, what's been going on lately, but that's a different story. The brain is an infallible object. It cannot be relied upon to give you accurate information as far as discerning data visually through your senses, through taste, smell, touch. It's not the best resource to figure it out. Again, basically an overexposed picture, poorly exposed, just a really, really, really bad image capture of this particular dress. If you want to see the dress in real life, that's the dress in real life. It was by a designer, I believe it's called Roman Clothing, I believe, out in the UK. This is the dress, is what everyone saw. And that's what most people saw. Keep in mind, they didn't see like the exact blues and blacks probably. My guess is that what they saw was the underlying perception of it. And that's what the human brain does sometimes. It's the one thing it's really good at is that is like if you walk into a house with a bunch of bad color temperature out there. So for instance, you go into a house, right? And the color temperature in the house looks like it's, let's see, like it's, it's kind of a yellowish cast around the house and stuff like that. But you walk in there, you can still pretty much accurately define the colors in there. Well, because the brain can see sometimes the underlying color pattern that's going on in there. So for instance, if I'm looking in a house and the house walls are yellow, but if I want to describe it as pale yellow, I probably could, even though we've got yellow incandescent lights everywhere. If you look on the side of my head, I got some yellow light, and right here, I got some white light right here. This is natural daylight. This is a house light right here. So basically what I'm doing is you're seeing two different types of color light on there. The brain can actually sometimes, but all this, the brain is telling you this is actual, you know, old Caucasian white skin, that's what this is, with a white beard, black hat, red shirt, even though this part is actually kind of yellowish up there, but the brain is able to filter out some of this data. But it doesn't work when it gets to some extreme things, and that's basically what it is. And this is what it has to do with seeing the Milky Way. It has a lot. Your brain has a lot to do this things because again, it prevents you from seeing sometimes the beauty and the majesty that's in the night sky because you can't literally see it. So hang on one second. Main thing about light is that you're not actually seeing the light, you're perceiving the light. There's been a couple of studies, and I'll put some links in some of the videos later on after this post and stuff on my YouTube channel. The humans don't see light, they perceive light. What that means is that even though the light is hitting the rods and cones of your eyes, the actual identification of the light is actually taking place inside the brain. That's how things happen. You're actually perceiving how light is, and this is a big, big, significant difference in how people do things. So for instance, this is how I perceive the light when I'm out there. The brain looks at the sky, looks at this. This is a scene at Casperson's Beach. Now, for some of you who have been following me along, you'll notice that this is a Casperson Beach. In fact, there's some data there that you just can't discern because the human eye, when it's looking out there, can't see it. There's a lot of things going on there. There's some light pollution, there's bad weather, yada, yada, yada. The problem is that the brain can't see the underlying data that's in there. It takes it a long, long time, especially in dark. The fact that your rods and cones of your eyes, what happens is the rods and cones of the human's eyes are pretty much rubbish when it comes to color. It's just, you're looking at this, it turns all the colors into like a brown mush, kind of like if you mix red, green, and blue up. You mix red, green, and blue up, what do you get? You get basically a bunch of rubbish, a bunch of purplish, not purplish, kind of like a brownish mismatch. Mashup of color. That's just like wow. And that's basically what the human eye is doing. It can't discern all the color that's coming out there. So how do you fix that? Well, you can't unless you're a different type of creature. If you're like a dog, a cat, a bee, a bird, those eyes have developed different ways to see and perceive color. And some of those guys can see outside the visible spectrum that we see. They'll see an infrared or ultraviolet. And they can see different things that we cannot see, which I think is kind of weird, kind of cool. So they're getting different input. than what we get. And they get to see different results. So if you take in our human rubbish, our eyes that are rubbish at seeing things at night, and light pollution, bad weather, and depending on the Earth's orbit, you're going to have a variety of things that are going to make it extremely difficult for you to spot the Milky Way. So how do you fix that? Well, there's not much you can do to fix that except to try to record the data with a camera and then reprocess it so you can see the underlying data. And that's what you're doing. And that's what I did in this particular picture. The night sky is a lot more colorful than what we think it is by reprocessing the data. And I didn't paint anything. I didn't put anything in there. I didn't add anything. All I did was I basically lightened it. I fixed the exposure. I tried to fix this area by darkening this up a little bit because I lightened the whole picture up. This got super bright. Some people have said when they've looked at this, they're looking at the sunrise as it's coming up. And actually what you're seeing is the light pollution from Inglewood City. Inglewood is, down the beach there from off of Casperson. I'm pointing south. I'm at the south end of Casperson. The other thing too is there was a piece of, looks like a plane or a satellite that was going by in the shot. You get some really interesting, you can see how much color, and there's little shades of purple, stuff like that in it. Now, keep in mind, I'm sliding things to the extreme, so it's really isolating the colors down to their barest things. But that's basically what's happening here. You're able to go into post and reveal the data. A lot of people, when they look at stuff, they don't really understand that perception is everything when it comes to seeing what's actually there. Your eyes lie to you all the time. In fact, you got a blind spot in your eyes all the time. There's that little bit where the rods and cones, they all get to the optic nerve. That's a blind spot. Your eyes fill it in. You ever done that little floating finger trick? You put your fingers to the bridge. It looks like there's a floating. Your brain can't fill in that data right there. That's a blind spot for your eye. It can't fill in, so it basically puts these other things there. The optic nerve, when you're looking around, everything looks fine. You would think you would see there'd be a big old hole where the optic nerve was because there's no light hitting that spot. But no, the brain fills that in. So it's really kind of a cool thing. So when I go out to really, really, really dark skies, much like this was taken in Nebraska with my son. You can see right here, I can actually discern the data of the Milky Way. So I can actually see it right there in the picture. It's floating right there in front of me, above me. There's a cloud there. However, I'm missing some of the underlying data. It looks like I said, that purplish, brownish mix of color because the human eye can't figure this stuff out. And yeah, I did manipulate this picture so it would look exactly how I saw it. If I actually record the Milky Way how I saw it, it's going to look like this all the time. I need to be able to record it of what the data that's actually being recorded. Now, you can see the difference between the picture on the left, the picture on the right. You can see the difference between heavy light pollution, Casperson Beach, and then the not so bad light pollution out in the panhandle of Nebraska. It's an extreme amount of difference. The Milky Way's here in this picture. You can't discern the data. Here, I can discern the data. Again, it's pretty much a purple mass. But once I do some little bit of editing, fix the color temperature for one thing, fix the data as far as that, I get to see some of the color that's there. And you can see that there is some color and some definition popping up right there. That is really, really, really super cool stuff. It just blows me away that there is so much more to the universe out there than what we can physically see. It's an astounding and amazing discovery that for me when I started doing this stuff. And by doing a little bit more editing, so I shot one portion below, and then I shot another portion above, stitched them together. And you can see right there, I'm starting to pull it together a little bit as far as the color goes. And then, I took a little bit of an artistic approach. I did oversaturate the colors a bit, but it's only to accentuate the color that's already there. This color, this purple color is here. It's just kind of dull, doesn't pop out as much. And I just wanted to make it a little bit more vibrant. Now, I can't see this with my human eye, not the way it's presented to me originally, but I can see it after I render it in post. And the fact that my eyes didn't see it while I was out there doesn't take away from the beauty or the grandeur of a night sky. Having a really deep, dark sky to go look at the stars is much more, I don't know, emotional to me as a concept to go out and view this stuff than looking up at coming at home and dealing with the urban light pollution, looking up and only seeing a few pinpoints of light. Yeah, I could see the moon, but I lose the emotional connection that I feel with a really, really dark sky. So if you record the night sky as you see it, you're just missing the big picture. Now we're going to go on to something I call sponsors from Dono. So these are my sponsors. Today's sponsor is me, Foto Dono. I got some upcoming classes and stuff that you guys are interested in doing. If you want to find out more about some of the things that I like to do and some of the techniques I like to do, how I made some of that stuff, I do offer private lessons. You can sign up online. You can go to my website or you go to JPI's website if you want to do that. I got a couple of classes that are coming up. Actually, this is a typo. I thought I fixed that already, but apparently I did not. This is going to be August 5th now. I'm doing a little intro into basic camera photography. Then I'm going to beyond basics photography and doing the light basics with flash. So if you guys are interested in doing that type of stuff, these are all online, and you can sign up for them either through my website or through JPI. Got some special online events coming up for those who are interested in. Nikon is doing what's called an online, Nikon. Capture One is doing a Nikon online demo with its software. And we're also going to be doing another demo with Light Landscapes. And I'm also going to be doing an online meeting with the Low Light Photo Group, which will also be recorded and streamed on the Low Light Group channel as well, too. So there you go. I haven't seen any comments live, so I don't know if anybody's watching today. So now, social media. If you guys are interested in following up some of the stuff, you can find out more about some of the things that I do with the group. If you go to MeetUp, I moderate two groups, the Low Light Photo Group and the Bradenton Photo Group. And if you want to, you can go to Facebook and find us there too as well, the Low Light Photo Group. So there's things like that. So if you guys are more than welcome to find out. And you can also follow me too on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Foto Dono. Yes, it's spelled with an F. The website, of course, is fotodono.com, where you can find out most of this information if you want to. Now, let's talk a little bit about settings when you go do this stuff. Now, I talk about this ad nauseum and ad nauseum on some of my other videos that I've done before, but no one seems to really get tired of it, so here we are again. So, but I'm going to just talk about it very briefly, because I've been, I think, rambling on now for about over 30 minutes here, so we'll be wrapping this up shortly. So, settings. The obvious thing is that you can't set the camera in automatic. There's no way you're going to be able to capture this, especially if you're stuck in heavy light pollution. Manual exposure and manual focus are two of the things that you kind of want to do to help you do all of this stuff. And what you want to do is you want to make sure you use some basic camera settings. So if you're in full manual, you want to be able to use some of those settings right there that you see right there. You want to be able to do like 1600 ISO, roughly 10 to 20 seconds, or 2.8. Now, depending on the camera and the amount of light pollution, this is all going to change, around. But if you're trying to just go out there and try it for your first time, if you know where the Milky Way is, then that's the way to do it. There's software that you could use out there. This thing is called Photo Pills. There's also a thing called there's Photo Pills. There's Stellarium, things like that. You can download these apps and you can look at them. But basically, if you want to say find the Milky Way in your sky, you can Google that stuff, and boom, there's tons of tools out there. It's not like it's rocket science, but there are things to help you out. Photo Pills is probably the most useful tool when it comes to planning these things. The other thing too, what you want to do is you want to play around with white balance. Now, for me, I usually will try to shoot it manually set it what's on Kelvin. Now, if you haven't changed your white balance before in your camera, look for it. It'll say AWB or just say white balance. You can choose some of the things. You can choose what's called incandescent if you want. But for me, around 3200 Kelvin works out fine. Again, depending on the severity of the light pollution, you might want to try a different setting, but roughly right around there is a good one to start with. Incandescent is basically dealing with taking the yellow color that's of the light pollution, trying to slightly more of a cooler tone. Now, equipment you want to take with you is you need a camera. These ones with interchangeable lens, a decent lens. You can shoot it with something like this with the 18-135. That's fine. You can certainly get by with that. You don't need to have the best of the equipment to go out and do this stuff. You really don't. It's helpful. Don't get me wrong. It's very helpful to have some stuff, but you can shoot the Milky Way with your basic entry level SLR system as long as you can change the settings. Now, if you're trying to shoot with your phone or with a compact camera, you're probably not going to get any good results unless you're in a truly dark sky. And what I mean by that, the sky has to be so dark you cannot see your hand in front of your face. That's how dark it has to be. So when you look up, you can discern the data of the sky with your own naked eye. If you can't see the Milky Way, then the chances are the device that you have, your phone or your portable camera, is not going to be able to record that data. Now, keep in mind, there's been some great strides with iPhones lately, or with any kind of smartphone, especially with the Google phone. They do a really great job, especially the iPhone, low light. But again, some of the pictures you see in the Milky Way, because they're taken in dark skies, really dark skies. I'm not talking about stuff on the East Coast. They're basically over there in the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere, hours from civilization, to keep away from the light pollution. Remote controls are probably the most useful devices while you're shooting out there too. For instance, I'm going to Big Cypress Swamp this weekend. At least that's the plan anyway. We'll see how that goes. You use an intervalometer or use a remote switch to help you basically let the camera keep shooting one picture after another of the night sky while you snuggle safely in your car while the bugs out there attack everything. There is no such thing as the perfect editing software. So what that means is that I've used every bit of this software for more than one reason. Photoshop, Lightroom, Luminar 4, Aurora HDR, Capture One Pro. Not one, I think, does the perfect job. I've come to find that Capture One Pro does a bit of a better job at editing my RAW files. RAW files are basically unedited data the camera creates that you can then edit in Photoshop, Lightroom, Luminar 4, and Aurora HDR. I find that our Capture One, I think, does a little bit better job for most of the pictures that I've been shooting. So I've taken some of my old ones and reprocessed those. And I think the picture is I think the picture detail comes out even more accurate as far as color rendition goes, which I think is kind of cool. Photoshop and Lightroom are, again, excellent editing tools and basic catalogers. Luminar 4 and Aurora HDR work also just as well. I use those as add-ons. You know, I think what I might start be doing is that I will probably still use Lightroom for most of my cataloging, but I'm going to use Capture One Pro to do some of the basic editing in RAW and then export those into something else. So I think that's probably how I'm going to end up doing it. I'm still working out. Once I get all that workflow really settled in, because Capture One Pro is a new program that I just really started playing with the last couple of months. And I haven't quite really worked out into a perfect, well, not perfect workflow, but a workflow that I find more equitable for me. Now, I want to talk about something that's really important. It's about the Big Cypress Swamp excursion that I'm planning to do this weekend. Now, I know some of you are already planning to go out there with me. That's awesome. But you got to keep an eye out. This is weather stuff that we're talking about. Weather is probably the big thing that you got to be mindful about. So I use a number of apps to help me out with this one. This is the one that's called Clouds. Clouds works out really well to do this stuff. In fact, I think I'm mispronouncing the name. Hang on. It's called Clear Outside, excuse me. That's what it's called, sorry. So Clear Outside is probably a really good app when it does that. Not only does it tell you the Bortle cloud cover, the class of darkness, that's class 3, that's really good out there. If you want to get class 1 would be even better, but you're not going to find that most here in the east side. There's not too much class 1 Bortle skies. You get maybe class 2, class 3, but not too much class 1. So if down by the Everglades in certain directions of the sky, you get in this nice little class 3. The issue that's going on right now is the fact that the night I'm planning to go out there, which is Saturday night, Sunday morning, is the fact that it's going to be very very cloudy with a bit of chance of rain. Now, I don't rely on one piece of software to help me identify this stuff. So what happens is that I've actually, hang on one second. One of the things I meant, oh yeah, just a little bit closer up of it right there. So this is the time frame I'm kind of thinking about shooting. And you can see right here what I'm doing right now. You can see that the cloud cover, which is at basically at 65% of the sky that will be covered up. And there's a small chance of rain that's coming up as far as that goes. Now, there's another app, it's called Windy. Windy is really useful to discerning data out there as well too. This little orange circle is where we're going to be. And Windy, basically, I could break it down into rain, clouds, and visibility. So right now, rain around that time frame, I'm looking pretty good. Not too much rain that's going on. It looks like there might be some rain out there. Clouds, again, it's going to be kind of hazy and cloudy, so I may not see anything. Visibility, again, is looking pretty okay-ish. You know, it's not as transparent. So when I'm looking at this, you see like this blue thing right here. This is all what they consider moisture vapor in the air. This is the really heavy cloud formation over here, not so much cloud over here. I mean, there's clouds over here. This is less clouds over here. Over here, we see a lot of visibility though. So they're saying it's going to be fairly cloudy, maybe some rain, but the visibility is going to be pretty decent overall. So it's kind of like a mixed bag. I may not get the patch of the sky that I'm looking for, because what I'm looking for in the patch of sky is to the south. I need to be able to look south. I'm not going to get it. However, if you look towards the north, the east of it type of stuff, you might see the comet that's out there too as well. If I do go ahead with all this stuff, these are some of the. If you go to the MeetUP page, you'll find some information there as well. Basically, I'm going to be out there between 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Expect bugs, heat, and humidity. Dress accordingly. I plan to be at the park at 1. I plan to start shooting around 1:45 in the morning. So that's kind of the idea. I'm only going to be there at 1 o'clock in the morning to basically help folks out, to basically with some settings and stuff like that. If anybody's got any questions, things of that nature, I'll be more than glad to go over that stuff with them. The Kirby Park has some parking up there, ample parking. It also has some lights out there, which is helpful as well too. But it's easy so you can see some stuff up there. So keep in mind, I did lose my car keys out there, so that was fun in the dark trying to find those. Luckily, what I did was what happened was I opened up the car door and I stuck my keys on top of the car, and that's where they got left. Then, of course, I closed the car door and I'm wandering around doing stuff, and then I can't find my keys because they were on top of the car. Boy, I got super lucky there. Again, cameras, an interchangeable lens camera, DSLR mirror system with a remote switch, tripod, something sturdy, no monopods, lenses. Bring any lens you wish, however, a lens that have sufficient focal length, 24 millimeters to 70. If you got questions about this stuff, by all means, just go ahead and drop a line. I'll be glad to answer those questions for you. I'm not charging anything for this fee. However, if you'd like to, you can sponsor me on my Patreon link. You can also leave me a tip as a one-off payment on PayPal, or you can pass it on. Just basically, as I've heard out there in the internet land, don't be a dick. Pass on some kindness and some charity out there. All right, that's all I ask. This is kind of like the timeline for the whole entire night as far as the sky goes, as far as what's going to happen. Not the weather, mind you. Kind of like what to expect as far as it goes. Again, all this stuff is listed on the MeetUP page as well too. Again, I'll put the link in once all this finishes posting, and I'll put those links in there too. So if you want to, just keep this bookmarked and go from there as well. Remember, when you're registering for this event, if you're coming out there, please do social distancing will be in effect. Masks are encouraged to be worn. With all the stuff that's going out there, you know, and I can understand if nobody else wants to do this, that'd be perfectly okay with me. You know, you don't have to join me out there. This is something I'm going to be doing anyway. I'm going to be in the area anyway. I'm going to be hanging out there with my son. We're going to be doing some father-son activities. So the idea is, you know, we'll be doing our own stuff as well. So you're not, you know, if you feel obligated, you need to come. You don't have to go if you don't want to. Yeah, you know, again, I would again stress extremely, just be careful. If you don't feel good, just stay home. It's just a photograph. That's all it is. Photographs aren't worth risking anything else over. All right? You have been warned. You like that? I worked on that really, really, really long. Just a little credits and stuff like that. Photos, most of the photos you saw in here, in fact, all the photos in here, except for a couple of things, were done by me. Graphics were by Miss Shelby Westlake over at JPI. Online image resources, I've used a variety of resources. Some of them are in here, some of them not. Additional graphics image provided for Wikipedia, public domain, or Creative Commons. Image and text used here are deemed a fair use for educational purposes. So, yeah. That's pretty much what's going on out there in Foto Dono land. So I'm going out this weekend. Just to let you know too, for anybody who's interested, tomorrow's my birthday. If you want to, you're more than welcome. I'd be, if you want it as a birthday present, just post your favorite Milky Way photo on there. It'll be wonderful to see that. So it'll be really cool. You can post it up on my Foto Dono page or on the Low Light group and say happy birthday, Foto Dono. That would be awesome. But yeah. Hope everyone's doing good out there. Hope everyone is being safe and well. And I thank you all very much for taking the time to watch this. Once it does post up on the YouTubies, make sure you subscribe and like there. It's for the next video that we'll post. I will be posting this one. I'm not going to be posting last Saturday's video. Oh my God. It was horrible. At least in comparison to some of the other stuff I've done. At least the video is much better here, so that's good. The virtual screen's not so good. I don't have a green screen here at the house. That's one of the next things I got to get. Some decent lights I got to bring here. I've been using the studio lights at JPI, and I just didn't feel like hauling them down here. So, yeah. But, yeah, that's about it. Thanks again, guys. And I really appreciate all the support. It's been a lot of fun. And as I said, I'm going to keep on doing this stuff. I kind of like this format that I've been doing with this presentation, with this keynote, with this little slideshow presentation. I haven't quite gotten up to the skill set of some of the YouTubers out there where they can cut and edit a video and go, blah, and there's like this, and they go, blah, and they're like that. Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to be me. I think this is going to be the format that I'm going to keep on doing. Like I said, if you got any comments or any suggestions, I'd be willing to listen to them, and I'll be, see what happens. Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. And be safe and be well out there. Bye. Da 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 da